Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new around here, my name is Nicole, and today we're going to be making biscuits and gravy. Now normally I use my own biscuit recipe, but this time I decided to use one called Grandma's Southern Buttermilk Biscuits by Divas Can Cook. It was just something I had been wanting to try for a while, so I thought I'd give it a go. The first thing you want to do is go ahead and measure out 2 cups of flour, and then to that you want to add 1 tablespoon of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of salt, and a half a teaspoon of baking soda. Do not get your soda and your powder mixed up, that doesn't ever work. Then you want to add 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar. Then go ahead and get your whisk and whisk all that together to make sure everything is incorporated. Honestly, I've been having a rough couple of weeks and my house is a mess due to all the construction, so I just needed that comfort food. Now, the thing about this recipe for biscuits is it calls for a 1/4 cup of butter flavored shortening. I don't have butter flavored shortening, and my shortening, when I pulled it out of the cabinet, had mold in it. So I decided to go ahead and just use all butter. So I did a 1/4 cup of butter in place of the 1/4 cup of butter flavored shortening, and then 3 additional tablespoons of butter for the butter portion of these biscuits. And I grated them in to my mixture. When you're making biscuits, you want that butter and all of your ingredients to be as cold as you can get it, so try not to touch that butter too much. Obviously, grating it in, I had no choice, but keep it as cold as possible, and if you think it's starting to just warm up too much, go ahead and stick that mixture back in your refrigerator for like 15 or 30 minutes, and it'll do the trick. So because I grated this in, I don't really think that I should have used a pastry blender here because it made the pieces even smaller. What you're looking for is almost like a coarse cornmeal. My biscuits came out really tough, and I really feel like it's because I grated the butter in and then I used the pastry cutter. Since I had grated it in, what I should have done is just kind of separated it out and mixed it together and been done and not touched it and overworked it. Now here is also a fun and interesting thing that I just realized. I was supposed to use buttermilk here, and honestly, I didn't. I used regular milk. So anyway, you're supposed to add in 1 cup of buttermilk and then go ahead and stir that in so that your flour gets nice and moisturized. Moisturized? So we're putting lotion on it? Ah. Off to the side, I have my cast iron skillet over very, very low heat and added just a little bit of butter because when you put your biscuits in there and then you put them in the oven on top of that butter, it gives them such a nice crust. Now we're going to generously flour our surface, and then we're going to turn our dough out onto the surface so that we can knead that dough together. You could use a rolling pin here if you want, but I prefer to use my hands and just work it into a nice rectangular shape so that you can cut out your biscuits. Make it about 1 inch thick. Now, I added just a little bit of flour so that my dough wasn't quite so sticky, and kneaded it just a few times so that it was very cohesive. Again, put it into a rectangle, then get your cookie cutter out or your biscuit cutter, whatever, and make it about 1 inch thick and cut out your biscuits. Flour your biscuit cutter if you need to so that the biscuits don't stick to it. I generally tend to not have to. Also, when you're cutting out your biscuits, don't push it down and spin. Just push straight down, let it cut, and be done. Twist it, it makes them a little more tough. Then once you have all the biscuits cut out of that, go ahead and combine your dough back together and just keep cutting biscuits. Don't worry that those last couple of biscuits may not look the prettiest, they're still going to taste amazing. Now, to give them a nice golden crust, you could I like to use a pat of butter on top of them. I don't really spread it on there. I just put a pat of butter on and it'll go ahead and melt. If you don't want to use butter or you don't have any butter, you could use milk. You could use heavy cream, you could do an egg wash, or you can even use just a little bit of mayonnaise spread on the top. I know it sounds weird, but it'll work. Now place your pan in a preheated 425-degree oven for about 14 to 16 minutes, and you're going to have some nice biscuits. If you have never made, it's one of the easiest things to do. Now at Thanksgiving time, my husband and I argue, put air quotes around that word, on how to make gravy. He has one way, I have another. We always argue to see who has the best way or whose way is going to win. But this time we're doing it my way. First thing you want to do is start out with a pound of sausage, and you're just going to brown it up. Very easy. Now that your sausage is browned up, you're going to add 3 to 4 tablespoons of flour to the sausage and then let it cook. You just want to mix it around and let it cook. We're going to cook the raw flour out. We don't have to add any additional fat because there was very little grease on this particular sausage. I didn't even have to drain any off, but it gave just enough to make a roux. Now we're going to add roughly a cup to 2 cups of milk. You're gonna have to eyeball it. If it's starting to look too thick, you add just a smidge more milk. Add it very slowly. If it's starting to look too thin, then maybe you need to add a little bit more flour, or else you can make a little bit of a slurry using just a little bit of cornstarch with a little bit of milk, and it will go ahead and thicken. Now, this is also a process. It's not a quick process. It'll take it 3 or 4, 5, 6 minutes, I don't know, to thicken. You just kind of have to sit and watch and gauge. That's how you make a cream gravy. Very simple, very quick. You just kind of have to pay attention and read your ingredients to see what they're doing. I did go ahead and add pepper, but I didn't add any salt at this point. Sausage tends to be a little on the salty side, and I wanted my gravy to go ahead and thicken up. When it thickens up, it actually condenses down, so I didn't want to get my concentrate of salt too much. Therefore, I did add the pepper. It needed more pepper later, but when you taste it after your gravy is made, that is when you adjust your seasonings. As you notice, my gravy is starting to thicken up. It's up to a boil. I have it probably over medium heat or so. And when you drag a spatula through it, as long as it doesn't just whoop right back to it, that's what you want. You want it to just slowly move back. This too is the time when you want to check your gravy for its seasoning. Now I pulled my biscuits out because the timer went off on them and they weren't done. So I put them back in for about 3 more minutes or so because they were almost there. They just needed that little golden brown to them. Your gravy will go ahead and continue to thicken up as it cooks. If you kill the heat to it, it's also going to thicken up just a little more. Because my gravy was done just before my biscuits, I went ahead and I turned the heat off to it. When you are ready to serve it, if you turn the heat back on, it'll loosen it up just a little bit, and it is the perfect gravy. The biscuits are golden, the gravy is done. It is time to plate this and get to eat. Now some people tear their biscuits into bite-sized pieces. Some cut the biscuit in half, and some use it like it is. Which are you? Leave me a comment down below. As you can see, I cut mine in half, although sometimes I've been known to tear it into bite-sized pieces. Also, did you see that bottom? Wasn't that beautiful? Okay, now let's top the biscuits with the gravy, and then it's time to eat. And boy, did I need it that day, because we were putting in a new front door, and boy, was it cold outside.